What's up, San Diego? You're tuning in to Get Show Podcast, brought to you in part by Bacho Productions. I'm one of the hosts, Jaime, here with.
John.
And Chris.
Today, we're going to be talking about the system and how it's designed to make minorities fail. And, we're going to go ahead and jump right into it,
Well,
starting
we
from school and harassment by the police officers.
right, and when we talk about the system, we're talking about the system complete as a whole. We're talking about starting from help before you even are born as a minority. If you don't have the money, the means to be able to succeed in life from a beginning along with your parents. I mean, the system's just made for you to fail before you're even born.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by that, man? We're talking about the welfare system, and removing the father from the home. So this it's the way our government right now and how they have it set up to where they incentivize. Hey, let's remove the father from the home and incentivize for women to be able to get that help. Which, don't get me wrong, the help is there, and I'm good for it. Like I'm all for it. The problem is the situation here is that it's they're using it more as an incentive to remove the father from the home and saying, hey, you don't need the father, you don't need nothing to do with the father. Let's remove him, and then we're going to give you the money for the child,
More money.
more money, and for
Because
more
I
kids
think
you have,
if-
more money you
Because
make.
I think if the father is, has a criminal background, uh, it's harder for him to get a job and bring that you know food to the table and put a roof over the head and
Yeah.
provide. And the way they do that by giving the father a criminal background is that whole stop and frisk that used to happen back in the day.
Mhm.
And I remember at a very young age always being stopped by the cops and harassed and was told anything more than a group of three, you're a gang.
Mhm.
And we would have to have our homies, some of them walk in front of us and some of us walk behind, because if it was more than three, you were considered a gang. So they
Yeah.
would stop and frisk you and try to find anything. And if they didn't find anything that day, guess what? Next day they'll stop and frisk you again.
Yeah.
So this starts at a young age, and then it just becomes a cycle.
Well,
So
it's going back to. I didn't want to interrupt you, Jaime, but to kind of like pull back a little bit. So what I was saying is like the situation uh, for minorities. It's already before you're even born. It's set up for you to fail, right? And so going back to that whole incentivizing the woman by removing the father from the home and providing and giving money to the mother. Um, it's more like it's like, oh, I'm going to be more dependent on the government, and so I don't need the dad. The dad doesn't need to be in the father. I mean, the child's life, and so
and then
that
giving them the title of an independent woman.
and giving them
that's,
well,
that's not independent.
that's not, yeah, no, I
If,
get that,
if,
and
if
I don't
you're
really want to get into
living off
that
that.
portion of it,
Yeah.
like but we're going into where we're already made to fail before we're even born, and so what happens is you keep the woman, you give the mother just enough money just to barely survive, right? Just to barely survive, and you get it in the government. The way it's set up is you have them, the mother is dependent on the government and that government assistance. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that
For
as
those
long
who need it.
for those who need it. Exactly, for those who need it, right? It should be something where like, hey, if the dad's no longer in the picture, the father left
Or
and
even
doesn't
if
want
the
nothing to do,
father
or
just got
passed,
laid off
or got laid off.
you
Exactly.
never know.
That's
Situations
good.
happen, yeah.
That's a good program to have. That should be there, but taking advantage of it and living off of that 100%. That's where the government does. They should have an area where they say, okay, look, it's going to be for X amount of time. We're going to give you the help.
According to
Uh,
them, they do,
Yeah, but that's
but
not.
they're not.
That's
They're not
that's
following
not.
up. They're not
Yeah.
doing it. So this is the way it is. If you want to be on government assistance, you have to either one, get like some sort of part-time job, or two, have enroll in school. And I know a lot of these women because I grew up
Well,
in
it's not just
we grew
women.
up in that
We know that there's
neighborhood.
men that do that too.
Yeah,
That do it as
but
well.
as
So it's not just.
but what we're talking
But
about
majority
is
is
the
it's the
man
mother.
not in the home.
Right, the
So
father.
this is where the father not in the home. So a lot of them, what they'll do is they'll enroll in school to show that, hey, I'm looking, or hey, I'm looking for a job, and then just to get them off their back, and then that's when they
Kind of
stop,
like dragging it
and
out.
then dragging it out. And
Right.
there's some women that have lived off of it for about 18 years,
Yeah,
that
almost,
kids,
yeah, just pretty much the
that whole
entire.
entire time of that kid's, youth.
Right, and then
So,
or they end up getting pregnant and doing the
or
exact same thing
doing that.
over. That's what I'm saying. Like
Yeah.
where the government is incentivizing that
Yeah.
and removing that. So before, like what you had brought up last week, in the 50s and the 60s, right? So minorities in the 50s and the 60s, and I can be corrected, but I'm pretty certain. So because I read up on, I'm not the smartest
They were
person,
succeeding and
but
thriving.
yeah, they
They
were
had both.
minorities were succeeding and thriving. They were buying their own homes. They were opening up businesses. They lived in really beautiful neighborhoods. And so what happened was during the civil rights movement, okay, uh, the government on the one party. I'm not going to name because we're not trying to
Yeah.
be political that way. But one party was like, let's figure this out. Let's figure this out. We can't have them succeed um, and be better than us. And we're not talking about. I'm not trying to make it about a race because that's not. It's not about a race situation, right? But what happens? They say they come together and they go. The government comes together and says, how could we destroy this situation here where they're succeeding, and so they came together and said, hey, let's incentivize it, right. So the welfare system came in play and incentivize, hey, let's remove the father from the home. Let's start putting liquor stores on each corner. Let's introduce drugs
Or
and poor
education.
education. And that's where we're going into the
Yeah.
poor education, how the system is made not for minorities to succeed, but for minorities to fail or to be dependent on the government, right? And that's wrong. To this day, in 2024, we are still being told that big government or
Big
uh, big
corporations.
corporations and government is a good thing because they're trying to give us, oh, we're going to give you free education, we're going to give you more of a welfare system, free housing, free this and free that, right? And of course we as minorities, our parents thought, hey, cool, yeah, let's, free is good. And so then we get taught that, and then what happens is we teach our children that, right? But
Free isn't always good.
free isn't always good, and overreach of government is not good, and that's an overreach of government. And what do I mean by overreach of government? It says you get, okay, so people, when they get on the when people get on the welfare system, by getting that money, right, and taking that money and taking the free housing on the Section 8 and the free education stuff, uh, the government has the right to come into the home because it's not your home. Let me make that very clear. It's not your home. It's the government's home. They pay for the home, right? They pay your rent. They give you the food stamps. They give you the check every month. And so in that, by you receiving that, it's the government. The government has every right and every authority to come in without probable cause, without even saying, hey, you know what, heads up, we're coming in. They could just come knock at your door. And what do I mean by that? It's not going to be like the FBI agent, federal agents coming in. No, it's going to be what we call the CPS, right? Child Protective Services, and
A
CPS,
caseworker.
a caseworker, exactly. Because when you apply for that welfare, they provide you with a caseworker, right? And that caseworker can show up anytime, anywhere, ask your children questions at school. They can come knocking at your door, and it's like, if you don't want to let them in, well, too bad. You're gonna have to let them in because they have control of your entire life.
And
Financial,
CPS is another system that is
right?
not good.
It's not good.
You
Yeah.
know,
Well, it
to
is
an
good to an
extent,
extent,
but it
but
needs somebody to overwatch them.
right.
And it's crazy how it is because you have internal affairs overwatching police officers,
Hmm.
but there's still corruption. And it's the same thing with CPS workers. You have some corruption there,
Yeah.
and it's they get their incentives on how many how many kids they can place into a separate home.
Hmm.
So they're constantly, gonna be right there trying to find any little excuse to take that kid and put them in a different home. And I've heard stories
Right.
from people that that
Hmm.
have everything to offer a kid
Hmm.
and good parenting. But oh, we got a phone call, we got this, we got that, and if you don't comply, now they're out to get you, and
Hmm.
they're going to make it seem as if you're hiding something.
Right.
You
And
know,
then it goes into where, okay, so that's government, right? And the government for me is it is this is these are our opinions, okay? And everybody's going to be have different opinions on this. Like I
and
said,
these are things you can Google too.
yeah,
You
these are
know,
things that yep.
things you could do your own research on,
Hmm.
and you will see how many people have even tried to sue CPS for these things.
Hmm.
And you know, it shows you a lot of corruption even with, you know, prisons,
Hmm.
privately owned prisons. They should not be privately owned,
And they're
you
going
know.
more and more privately owned. And the reason
And
why they're going more and more privately owned is because it is the best interest of the politician. Because the politician gets let's put the stuff on the table. There's no there's no hiding it anymore.
yeah,
We're in 2024. There's an information highway, and we could look this up right away. Politicians get their pockets laced
oh
on the
yeah,
back end,
yep,
and you're like, well, that's illegal. Nah, nah. Politicians. I mean, there's
they hide it
loopholes
by
through it
donations.
by donations. Exactly. They open up their own what do they call it? Sorry, I'm drawing a blank. It's their own foundations
Yeah, you could
where
donate.
yeah, you could donate to their foundation, and so and then they name themselves either the president, the CEO of that, right, but a nonprofit, right. But if you do that, you could still have employees, and they still pay themselves out of that, right? Out of that. How do you think?
And you don't pay taxes.
And you don't pay taxes exactly, and that's how also foreign entities, foreign government, and foreign corporations contribute into the nonprofit, right? And that's how they buy the politicians. And there's loopholes. There's a ton of loopholes
And this is
through it.
why they're trying to target these low income neighborhoods
Hmm.
and try to arrest as many people as they can to fill these prisons, you know, these privately owned prisons. Because
We
if
don't
you,
even have to. I don't mean to interrupt, but we're not just talking about when
we're
you say
talking about a
we're
lot of
talking about a
different
lot of
things,
things. We're not just the
private
prisons.
jails,
We're talking about like juvenile hall.
corrupt
Yeah, corrupt
CPS,
CPS where now there's big corporations that are investing into what are they for. I'm sorry, man. I'm drawing up foster homes
yeah,
where they're building facilities for foster homes. Oh, for the kids and this and that. No, these corporations want that money
and government
from the
contracts. They're
government
considered
exactly.
government contracts where basically, so you open up a prison, and what happens is you need to fill that prison. So,
It's like,
you know,
but
those,
not just a prison,
well,
foster homes. I mean, the foster care
so
system.
to break it
Everything.
down a
Mhm.
little bit so people could
Right.
get an idea
Yeah.
of how this system works.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, if you fill the prison, think about it this way: it costs $60,000 to house, according to them, what they're going to tell the government to get that contract. It's going to cost 60, 70,000, whatever, to house that inmate.
Mhm.
And in reality, you know, it's just a bed and a cell, whatever,
Mhm.
and it's only going to cost them maybe 15,000 a year or
Yeah.
10,000 a
But
year
they got
to
shareholders.
house them.
Yep.
So now they make out with that rest of the money.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, because they got
they pocket the
shareholders,
rest of that.
they got politicians that
So
they need to pay,
yeah, and
to
it's the same thing
donate
with the
to.
foster care system. They're
Yep.
going to say it costs this much to house this child because they're in our, you know, facility,
Hmm.
and pol- basically the taxpayers are paying for that housing, you know, because that's where they're getting the money from,
Yeah, and so
you
that
know.
what happens is now they're like, yeah, now we can make money off of these minorities who are less fortunate.
Mhm.
And so instead of them being a burden, they're like, oh, they're a burden, or instead of they're making us money now. They're making money. The minorities, the less fortunate minorities, are making money for these huge corporations and the government and these politicians. And so the system's already rigged for us to fail as a people.
Yeah,
Okay,
poor
and
education,
poor education.
poor school. What does poor education do? You get
Mhm.
these minimum wage labor jobs. You know, you got poor education that's going to lead to poor jobs. Those poor jobs are going to keep you in the same neighborhood and keep you from moving out into these nicer neighborhoods to give your child a better life. So that's why we go
Mhm.
back to, it's better to be self-taught,
Mhm.
self-educated, do your own research. because at
Well,
the end of the day, like
right. Education's everything.
education,
I'm good for. I mean, I
if
agree
you
with you
get
to
the
the
right
extent. To an extent.
education,
Uh-huh.
if you get the right education,
Right.
but
But trying to get the right education in a low income neighborhood in the hood, right? Let's call it for what it is. You're not going to get that education that you think you're gonna that you like. Oh yeah, well, there's gonna be people out there that says, well, you know what? If you study hard and you get good grades, you'll get yourself out of there. It's not always like that. Listen, um, I've got a niece, right? We got a niece. She grew up majority of her life in a rough neighborhood where we grew up, right?
yeah,
And so she was
with
going to
poor
school,
education.
yeah, with poor education, right? She was going to school. She was a straight A student. She ends up coming over and living with me. And I live. Look, I'm not going to be. I live in a suburban neighborhood because I bust my butt from young age, right? And so the education here in the suburbs is completely different from
Yep.
where she was going to school. And she had straight A's, right? So she comes in, she's losing, in order for her to get to a university, she was missing a ton of classes to get her into a university. And when she was going to that school, I won't name schools or the school system there, they were like, no, you're good, you're good. This is what you need. This is what you need to graduate, right? They weren't giving her the classes that she needed to get into a university to be able to succeed in life. So she thought, she's like, I'm a straight A student. I've got this, right? She comes here to the suburban neighborhood, uh, great high school, and she's missing a bunch of classes to be able to get into a university. And her counselor in that other neighborhood told her, no, you're good. This is what you need, the minimum to graduate. A straight A student, a
The minimum.
counselor giving her the minimum,
Minimum.
the minimum classes just to graduate high school. So their mentality there is already, you know, yeah, just give her the minimum. She's gonna graduate, give her the minimum to graduate. That's it.
So
We're
so
lucky if they graduate.
this is the
That's
thing.
that's
Chris,
the
Chris
mentality.
is fresh out of high school.
Right.
High school graduate. So
Congratulations, by the way.
yeah,
Thank
you did it.
Mhm,
One of the few. You
mhm.
did it. So what do you feel you learned in school?
Not a
How do
not a damn thing. I don't know multiplication and nothing. I don't know
Well,
anything.
but is that because you were just not a good student, or was this because
you
you
feel
just
the
had
teachers?
the teachers? Right.
It's just they just didn't try hard enough to actually care and
They
be
just
like
feel like. Did you feel like they were just there
they were
for a
just
paycheck?
they were just there for a paycheck. Whether you learn or not, they don't care. They said I don't get paid enough for this, so
Mhm.
that's what every teacher told me. I don't get paid enough for this.
Yeah.
So
No.
they just teach, and if you listen, you listen. If you don't, they don't care.
Yeah.
That's not their life.
And not to knock teachers, because there's really good teachers
There
out
are
there
teachers
that
that
Yes,
love
care.
it, and
Yeah.
you can tell right away. You know,
And those are probably
you
the
and
new
those are
teachers.
yeah.
the,
Right now,
the
it's
ones
just
that are just new.
they're just like they're just and unfortunately that's the way it is in
Mhm.
those areas and in the hood. Once again, it's because it's set up for failure.
I
So just to give us the minimum and say, okay, well, they're lucky that they even graduated.
and I learned
That's
more.
wrong. That's foul.
I learned more teaching myself and searching things up than being in school.
Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, and that's great, brother. Now, but you at the end of the day, you still need that high school diploma if
No,
you want to
yeah.
get into at least a junior college or an okay
Yeah.
job. Let's not say good, an okay job, right? So, going back to that with your cousin, our niece, so she's she was backed up on the classes to get into a university. She finally gets in there. She starts getting all her classes. She's getting all the credits, the remaining credits that she needs for a university to graduate. Because here the standards are set more higher. The bar's set higher than where she was, growing up, right, and going to school. So, what was I trying to get to? So I'm not saying, and I mean, stop me if I'm wrong. You don't have to go to a university for 4 years, whatever, to get a degree in arts or a degree in music or a degree. And I'm not beating those up like that in that way, but we got to be realistic. Okay, we got to be realistic. It's growing up is like if you don't have an education, you'll never be anybody. You're never going to be anything. You're not going to ever be able to afford anything. You're not going to become nothing, right? And that's the way it was growing up. From you would hear it from anybody and everybody, right?
Hmm.
All this and all that. No, no, no. What we didn't hear,
Even the teachers, though,
even the teachers,
would tell us
uh-huh.
if you don't pay attention, you were going to be working at McDonald's. I'm like, damn, McDonald's, they make
They make
they're making
better
some good money
money
now.
Well, yeah, I
But
mean, I don't know about good money,
but
but
that's what we were told,
right,
you know.
to get your education
I
and
mean,
get
they're
into a
not, but they're not
university,
minimum.
right,
They're not minimum,
right.
you know.
And then the other
So
option is if you did get your high school, then the other option was, well, join the military, go see the
yeah,
world, and not knocking down military because I mean, our mother was a military, our mother's a military brat and was a military brat. Our grandfather was in the military for many years. A lot of our family members are ex-military. We have a great uncle who just recently died a few years ago. Marine. We have another family member, a great, I mean, like maybe I think it's like our second or third cousin, who fought in the Vietnam War, and he was killed in Vietnam and stuff. So I'm not beating that up, but that's the only options that they were giving us is you
join
gotta
the military
yeah,
or join
Yeah,
the hood.
McDonald's
yeah,
or
or
the
I
hood.
mean, or if you're going to go into a university, but you have to really work hard to get to it, and even then, like it's not like you're guaranteed enrollment because
Hmm.
if you look at the universities, we're talking about we're
Acceptance rates.
the acceptance, right? And so a lot of people are being accepted from outside the country, right? So I'm not going to name any other, I mean, the countries, but majority the people that are getting accepted because those countries are contributing into the university system, right? Contributing, donating money,
Yeah.
right? It's all about money. It's all about money, right? So that being said, uh, you don't have to just to succeed in life. You don't have to go into a 4 year or go get a degree in something like arts or something that you're not really going to use out here in the real world. Let's call it for what it is.
Hmm.
You're going to go in if you do go in to do that. You're gonna
What
get
type of
into
arts do you mean? Like,
like
I mean,
just
you could be Pablo Picasso
Hmm.
type art.
yeah. I mean,
You make some money off that.
right, but it's not even. Yeah, that's going to be. People are going in
But there's a
for
lot of people that
gaming,
are going for that.
gaming, computers, all that stuff. And now, if you look at it, okay, there is so many people that went. Right, these kids went to go study computers and get their degrees in computers. Right, and now you have so
Yeah,
many
it's pretty
people.
hard to get into something like that
Right,
because
because now
it's always changing.
right. It's the
Technology's constantly changing.
constantly changing.
And if you don't change with it when it comes to education and learning,
Mhm.
then it's going to be harder for you to get that job.
Yep. But now what I was saying is it's flooded. That
Yeah.
industry is there's so many people, so many kids that graduated, got a degree in computers, right? Computer programming, gaming, all that stuff. And the market's so saturated and there's no demand for it because now the supply and demand, right?
Mhm.
So there's not much of a demand, but there's a huge supply of these kids. And so what happens to those jobs that used to be well-paying jobs? Well, these big corporations, these IT corporations are like, yeah, you know what? There's a supply and demand. So I don't have to pay
Yeah, they would
that
rather pay
crazy amount.
less.
Yeah, they could pay less because they've got a lot to choose from. And so when these kids go in and got their degree, they also worked up debt. So now before they even graduate, they owe all this money, student loans, right? All this money that they're probably can take a very, very long time to pay off. Sounds like
Let's take a quick
let's
break,
take a quick break.
and then we'll
We're
come
gonna
back
take a
to that.
break.
Okay. Yeah,
All right.
sounds like a plan. Let's take a
Sounds
quick break.
good.
All right.
All right, guys, welcome back. We're gonna go ahead and get back to where we were at.
Yeah. So like what I was saying, Jaime and Chris. So I was going to the point where, we're these young kids, this generation. Well, not just this generation, but the kids that go to college and university and they build up all this debt, right? And by the time they graduate, they're hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. And by the time they pay it off, I mean, they're going to be at their ripe old age. And so, or even middle age by the time they pay it off. Sometimes, depending on how long you went to school for, sometimes you won't even ever pay it off. And it's going to affect your credit for almost your entire life, right? And so, and they go to the university, to get arts and like, performing arts, or just a degree that's not going to pay in the real world to help them make real good money, because they're going to want to, they're going to get married, they're going to want to have kids, they're going to buy a house, a car, and it's not going to be enough money that they're going to make in order for them to have at least a good financial situation. So they get into all this debt. And so where I was going with that is that growing up, that's all they told us is, hey, if you want to make it, you have to have a good education. You got to go to a university so you could have a great career and this and that. And I chose not to, because in the environment that we grew up, we couldn't. It just wasn't like that. In order for me to be able to survive and to be able to I had to go to work. I had to start working at a young age, right? And I didn't have that, just education mentality, right? So I didn't have that. And so I went into the workplace, right? Directly into the work field. And when I first went into the work field, it was dishwasher, fast food restaurants, things like that, just mostly in the restaurant industry, right? Or janitorial, which they don't pay good. They don't pay. You're not supposed to get into the fast food industry to raise a family. They just don't. That's just not right. I mean, that's not for that, right? That's for kids that are in high school or kids that are in college, just to make a little bit extra money so they could buy whatever they need to buy, their little necessities, right? And so I was lucky. We were lucky enough because we had family, uncles, great uncles that were in the construction business. And so we had that opportunity for those doors to open up and learn a trade. But when I was in school, going through elementary, through junior high, through high school, the teachers never said, hey, you know what, by the way, there's other options. You could go learn a trade. You can go learn to be an electrician, a plumber, learn the construction business, because these are the service industries to service, for commercial and residential and all this stuff. And you could make decent money to be able to raise a family learning a skill, a trade. And that was all. They didn't tell us that. They said, oh, you got to go to school, you got to go to university, and if you're not going to do that, get into the military, and then the military will pay for your schooling, all of this, right? So if school would have said it, in school, our teachers would have been like, yeah, you know what, university is not for everybody. A college is not going to be for everybody, because let's be realistic. Education, a lot of people are just not. They're not into it. They don't want to go. They just barely get through high school, and then they want to get into the workforce. And so a lot of people don't know that. If I knew that even at a really younger age, to get out there and get an electrician license, or plumbing, getting that type of skill at a younger age, I probably would have been able to remove myself from the situation, from our living situation, a lot sooner than later, right? I would have went to a trade school. I would have went and I learned the trade. But it took me a few years after getting into the workforce, working fast food, working in the restaurant industry, going into like a sales associate at a retail, not really be able to make that money that I could have been making if I would have went directly to a trade school, and out of trade school become an apprentice for a construction company, for a plumbing company, for an electrician company, and knowing that I didn't know that they paid that well. It was over
those are the jobs that are hiring right now.
Right. Yeah.
Looking and hurting for people.
Exactly. And now those jobs pay more. So a plumber, electrician, trades, an actual skill in the construction business right now pays way more than you would go to get a degree, a 4-year university, get a degree in computers, in computer programming. They pay more. Because why are they paying more? Because there is a shortage. There's a shortage for those skilled laborers or skilled workers. And so, welding, they pay good too as well. I mean, you get a lot of people on the internet saying, "Oh man, they don't pay that well. They don't pay that good. They don't." Look, oh, I've worked in that industry and they didn't pay well. No, I don't think you understand. You probably worked in the industry as an apprentice because, of course, you go into an apprenticeship or not knowing nothing as a helper. They're not going to pay you like top dollar right away.
No, you got to learn first.
You got to learn. You got to go through the process.
Mhm.
And so when you get it, when you get out at the other end, is where you're like, damn, dude, like that's where the money starts coming in, right? And they're like, oh, you got people doing these little short videos, these reels on the internet, saying, well, you know what? They don't really pay. I was working with this company for 15 years, and they just kept paying me the exact same. It was a dead end job. Well, no. See. That's where you have to go. Okay, they gave you the opportunity to become an apprentice. They opened the door for you. You learned, and if you stayed there, that's the decision you made to stay there, right? But then also the company. I'm not beating all the I mean, I'm not saying that all companies are the same, and that I'm not beating the person. But if you know that company is not you're not going to go any further with more more money. Or there's not a growing position that you could grow with the company, then you have to, as an adult, we're adults, right? You have to go look at everything and go, you know what? I learned as much as I could with this one particular company. Now it's time for me to move on and go and get those doors open for me.
Well, it's kind of like real estate too. A
Yeah.
lot of people are jumping into learning real estate and doing that
Mhm.
because you watch these TV shows and you watch,
Mhm.
people on social media talking about how much money they claim that they're making off of it.
Mhm.
And I have a coworker that
Mhm.
does real estate,
Mhm.
but mind you, that's part-time.
Mhm.
Like that's a part-time job for him because he's making more working with us. So
Mhm.
it's like he hasn't proceeded and doing that full time because nobody's buying homes right now, especially with the way, things are,
Mhm.
with
The
the interest
economy.
rates and
Yeah.
everything and the way the economy is. So
I
when
mean,
you have a trade,
yeah.
especially something like that, where it's plumbing, mechanic, electrician, you're
A
always going to need,
welder.
these are
Mhm.
jobs you're always going to need and that they're hard to get,
Mhm. Yep.
So yeah, I understand
And
where they should be pushing on more hands-on in trades and doing stuff like that because this younger generation can't fix anything. You try to, you know, tell them to fix something, and it's like I'd rather throw it away than fix it. And
or they
we
don't
weren't
pay me
taught that way,
enough to do that.
Some.
or they don't pay me enough to
I'm
do
like,
that.
what are you talking about? You went into that interview. You negotiated a dollar amount. So you're giving your 8 hours or whatever amount of time for X amount of dollars, right? And right now, this younger generation is being misled.
Yeah.
And what do I mean by that? Being misled. They're being misled through the internet, through social media, all of that. There's
To do
videos
the
out
bare
there.
minimum.
Yeah, just
To
do the bare
Do
minimum.
the bare minimum because
They don't pay me enough for that.
corporations don't care about you. And
Yeah.
true, a corporation
Right.
doesn't care about you, but remember there's also the manager that works there that can put in a good word and give you that promotion.
Well, they open
give
the
you-
door for you.
Yeah, open the door for you and also
Mhm.
get you a pay increase. And I've seen
And if
it.
they're not going to give it to
I've
you,
seen
go
it a
somewhere
lot.
else but take that what you learn with that company
Yeah.
and take it somewhere else.
And I see it a
Especially if
lot.
you feel you're more valuable. But how could you go in as now you're just applying. You don't know nothing, right? Let's pretend you don't know nothing. And you're like, I want this. And if you can't give me that because I feel like I'm worth it, wait a minute. You're telling me that you have zero experience. You haven't gone to school for this, and you haven't gone to school for that, and you want me to pay you what? It's like, nah, you got to go through the process.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be overnight.
Because everybody wants quick money.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And that's
Mhm.
why they bring that mentality when they say they don't pay me enough or they don't pay me to do this or do
Mhm.
that. They got to understand, like, if you look at the managers and how they
Mhm.
were able to move up in the business was because they were showing that
Mhm.
willingness to learn. They
Mhm.
wanted to learn. So it was like whatever task that boss threw at you, you put in that time and effort. Now it's to a certain extent. If you see now, okay, I'm being taken advantage of because now I'm doing everything and they don't want to give me these pay raises when it's time, then that just tells you, okay, take what you learn and
and go
and look for something better. And
exactly.
there's nothing wrong with
Because
that.
where one door
But
closes, two doors open.
exactly.
But the doors are not going to open
If you
just
feel everything's
automatically.
owed to you.
Yeah, exactly. You got to go out there. You got to sometimes you got to kick the door down. You got to put your time, your effort in, and not expect it to come overnight. And that's right now.
Because
That's
we
going
started
back.
minimum wage.
Oh hell yeah!
When
You
we
know,
were kids and we went out there, we started at
mm,
minimum wage. We
yep,
started at the bottom
yep.
and worked our way up.
Uh-huh.
And in a lot of businesses and companies I've worked
Hmm.
for, I ended up moving up. And it was because my willingness to wanting to learn.
Right.
You know, it was like, hey, put me in, teach me. And even if they didn't want to teach me, I'll
Right.
learn on my own
Yeah.
because that's the way my mindset is.
The
Eh,
more
I'll
the more
learn.
you know, the more valuable you are. Right.
Mhm.
And right now, it's going back to what we were talking about, the systems being made to fail. Now they're using the same system from before you were born, the welfare system, the incentives, removing father from the equation, to prison and imprisoning the people and incentivizing these corporations to make money off of the minorities. To now we're going where there's people out there, men and women, these influencers that get on social media, right? And they use their platform to get those likes, to make their money by giving that information, injecting false information or information that they know nothing about, but what they're doing is they just trying to get those likes. And they don't understand that they're part of the problem too as well. Instead of providing
The right
the right information and saying, hey, you know what? I went from point A to point B to get to this point. And so I followed this what is it called? Instruction manual to get here. So every time people ask
And
me,
I
like,
see it
hey
a
man,
lot.
how'd you do it? How'd you go from here to here? Okay, first of all, I didn't go out partying every weekend, pretending that, that I had it like that. I'm not out there buying name brand, the Gucci, the Louis Vuittons. I'm not going
But now
cracking
you are.
bottles, right?
But now you are.
Every now and then, even, but I worked hard for it, right?
Yeah.
And so I didn't fake it. Yeah, I
You
didn't
had to
go out
make
there.
it
Yeah,
before.
I went out there
did
and
it.
I put in my time. I worked. I even worked in dead end jobs, man. But I learned from it, right? And I said, okay, this is the path I'm going to take. And if these are the cards I'm going to be dealt with, I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to be the best damn person that I can be in that industry as best as I can. And
Right.
so I picked up books, I took classes, I got certifications, I did what I had to do in order for me to be able to take my family to the next step. And I took those, and I long hours. Sometimes I didn't come home because I was working 2 jobs, all that, right? And I'm not asking for anybody to pity, nah, because I wasn't pretending to be the victim. I wasn't acting like the victim. I'm like, I got to get myself out of this situation. I'm gonna put in my time. I'm gonna do what I got to do in order for me to be able to get to the point where I want to be, right?
Mhm.
And so going back to it right now in social media and all of this, they're giving so much information that's just kind of like, what are
It's
you
always
doing?
sign up for a
You're-
course.
Yeah,
It's always sign up for my course. And that's what
Yeah.
I see a lot
yeah,
is if you want to make these millions of dollars, sign up for my course and I'll teach you how to sell false information to the next guy so he could sign up for your course. And these kids are falling for it.
right. Okay, so let's go back. Like so during daytime, right? If you recall, like when we were younger, during daytime television, right? At a
Mhm.
certain time slot, right? Especially during like when Oprah was on, Ricky,
Jerry Springer.
All that, they would always have those commercials. And a lot of our audiences probably understand that hey, University of Phoenix.
And we said
Or-
those shows because
or-
we didn't have cable. That's all we could watch.
Yeah, no. And and they would say, oh, sign up now at University for Phoenix and,
Oh, yeah.
and go for criminal justice, so you can get good, well-paying job as a
All
what?
those people,
As a security guard. And
Yep.
you don't even, so you go and you sign up,
UEI did the same thing.
UEI,
Yeah.
you
and-
go and you
and
sign up and then
finish the course.
finish the course, and then you owe them $10,000-$15,000, right?
I
Now
think
you
it's
have to,
more,
or
but
more,
yeah.
or more at the time. So you could go become a security guard.
You can do that for free.
Yeah, you go get your guard card.
And even then,
And even
some
then,
companies will pay for the
We'll
guard
pay
card.
for your guard card, do your
Yeah.
background check. They give you your uniform, hand you your flashlight, and away you go. And it's usually either minimum wage, right, or a little bit above minimum wage, depending on depending on the company. So you don't need to go sign up at those, University of Phoenix,
They made it.
UEI,
I
and all of
remember
that,
those
and get
commercials.
into that debt, bro.
I remember those commercials and those books and that they would give out for
Mhm.
UEI and those other
And who do they market?
and that,
Minorities.
yeah, the minorities. And also what they do is they try to paint a fake picture of, you're going to be a detective when you come out, you're going to be a forensic person. And
Mhm.
all of that is
Yeah.
nonsense. All they do is help you get your guard card
Right.
and and they place you into a security job.
Right.
And then from there, you have to still go and enroll into the police academy or whatever
Right.
else.
But if you don't have your high
But
school
if you
diploma,
have
or you
exactly,
don't,
but
or,
if you have a high school diploma, you can just go directly to the police academy
right,
and not have to go through
to a junior
UEI
college,
or
where
or or any of
Southwestern
those schools.
College has a what do you call it, Chula Vista, for Police Academy for City of Chula Vista, right? And so you could go, you're right out of high school, you go and you apply for that, and you go through you go through the class process, right? So you could graduate from the police academy, but you'll know right away, because you have to still do your different tests to even see if you qualify to become a police officer,
Yeah.
right? But no, UEI, University of Phoenix, and these places. And I'm not going to beat them 100% down, because that's not. There's some courses that you can take to better educate yourself, but those are
Yeah,
these
those they offer other classes,
other
and
classes,
they do get you into that type of workplace.
right? But they don't give you the whole picture.
Exactly.
They
don't.
they give you this, like, in the commercial, they paint it like you come
You
here,
know,
and in 6
a lot
months
of those
you are
jobs,
now a detective. Like,
yeah,
no, come on, that's
a,
not.
a lot of those jobs
Uh,
that you like, let's say how we mentioned,
mhm.
I'm not sure what type of college they're called, but we'll say like UEI, PIMA, and all of those, where you go sign up and you do medical, dental, and all that. They
Right,
do help you get in those type of jobs,
right.
but
But even
since
then,
it's
you
so
don't really
easy,
need to. It's
but since it's so easy
uh,
that how you mentioned those jobs, there's so many. It's high, like it's not a high demand
right,
anymore.
right.
It's
There's so
because
much supply. There's
there's so much
and short
supply. Yeah.
demand.
So they're offering now minimum wage to those workers,
Right.
that are coming out of school. And it's like, oh, we'll pay
And a
you
lot of those,
$15, $16 an hour.
yeah,
And it's like, seriously? I
yeah,
could have made that at
flipping
some
burgers.
flipping burgers,
Yeah,
if not more,
right,
flipping burgers.
right.
So yeah, it's sad because
It's
it,
all set up for once again for the
for
minorities to
to
fail,
fail.
and for corporations and government to make more money off of us. Right now, I want to say that it's not just on minorities, because we are mixed. We are mixed. Our mom's side of the family, our mom's white,
Yeah.
and so we have on
Even
our
though we
side,
might not look it.
even though we might not look it, right. But on our mom's side of the family, like, once again, we have our mom's white, and places in certain areas of the country are the exact same thing. So Caucasians, white people in certain areas of the country are
Especially
treated
you don't look
it, yeah,
it.
are also in the same boat as
Yeah.
as most of minorities, as Hispanic, blacks. They're on the same boat
Yeah.
as we are, because now, we talk about, oh well, I hear a lot of right now, we hear a lot of, oh, racism, blame it on racism, blame it on racism. Look, I'm not saying that we don't have a racism problem, because we do have, there's racism in this country, but is it 100% all, could we blame it on racism? No, we can't. What we have in this country, okay, is a class system. And what I mean by a class system is the has and the have, the have nots, the have and have nots. What do I mean by that? If you have money, you're going to get treated differently.
Yeah, based off of your bank account.
Exactly, your
Yeah.
financial situation.
Mhm.
And the ones that do not have is going to get treated a certain way, right? I think that that is a big major problem right now we have. And unfortunately, we are being fed that it's all racism, racism, racism.
No, it's like you said, it's a class issue.
It's a class issue that we
Because
have.
we grew up
Mhm.
in the hood, and we
Right.
seen every single national, especially where we grew up.
Yeah.
There was like almost every single
Yeah,
nationality
it was a
you
big
could think of.
melting pot.
I mean, there was all sorts of Asians, Islanders, Mexicans,
Our black
you know,
brothers,
yeah.
you know,
It was Somalians,
people from
from
Africa.
Somalia,
Yeah.
And Middle
from parts of
Easterns.
Africa,
Yeah.
Middle Easterns, yeah.
And
you
it's
know,
and we grew up
and
all in the same
and we
class,
all grew up in the
in
same
the
class.
financial class.
And there was also white people in that neighborhood too, in
Yeah.
that area, and
And they
it
had
was
it just as bad as we
they
had
had
it.
it just as bad as we had it,
Right.
and it was like you said, it's based off of your bank account.
Yeah,
If you couldn't get out of the hood, then you're screwed.
you're screwed. You know what? Let me use. Okay, so
and
when
so
I
are your children.
right, and so it's
you
like
know?
exactly. So let me use this. Okay, you hit right now. It's once again, if you the haves and the have-nots, right? And so here's a good example. Okay, if you go to Disneyland, great place, right? You buy your ticket, so you have to buy your ticket based on the day, right? On a certain day. So your ticket, let's say it's been a while, but let's say your ticket's $145 per person. You buy your ticket. Then when you get there, oh yeah, by the way, there's no more fast passes. We have this thing called the Genie Pass. So it's another additional $25 per person for the Genie Pass. So now you just bought your ticket, but if you want to get in front of the line in what Genie Pass offers, you have
And
to
cut in front of all the have-nots.
and exactly.
So my question is, did you have the Genie Pass?
Once again, it goes to the if you're
Just asking.
financial, if you're financially, if you could afford it, then you're gonna get cut. You're gonna cut in front of the line. But then on top of that, you buy the Genie Pass, and then on the larger demand, the newer rides that are more demand, you have to buy. I think you have to buy.
You didn't answer the question.
Well, the last
did you have the Genie Pass?
So the last time I went, yes, because I wanted to have that convenience.
Yeah.
Because I had that.
And if I had it, I would too.
Exactly.
You
So
know,
so that's what I say. Like that's a good.
I don't want to wait in a long line.
You don't have to go too far. There's reels out there now
Yeah.
that young kids and adults are doing. They're going. They have their Genie Pass. They paid the extra $25 to get to the front of the line. On top of that, for certain rides that are more in demand, so they go by and they go, look, the haves, which is them, and the have-nots, and they show the long line. It's once again, that's where we have a lot of our problems right now.
Yeah.
And society for us is the society is setting us up for failure. And so they implant they teach us that if you want to look rich, you got to go out and you have to buy that Louis Vuitton bag, that Gucci bag. You have to drive that Mercedes Benz, that Land Rover, all of that, right? To look rich and to try to fit in to that society or that class society. We got a society problem with a class issue, right? And so systems just completely made, and that's what, and who teaches that, right? Who teaches that is big corporations.
Yeah.
Is by getting us young through the internet, on social media, on television, with movie stars. A lot of these movie stars, they don't have the money like that to go and buy that stuff. It's given
Give
to
it
them.
to them.
It's given to them so they can put it on, they can wear it, and they can send young adults, young kids that really can't afford this stuff to go buy that stuff. And they start programming us that, these are the most important things. And it's not. It's not.
I think the older you get, the more you start to realize it's the small things that matter.
Mhm.
And
Yep.
and for some, because I've met some older people that still have that childish mentality of, I gotta have the Louis Vuitton and the fake body parts and all that just to keeping up with the Joneses.
Mhm.
So it's like I try to make sure that my kids don't try to follow those footsteps, and I try to teach them to be humble for what they have.
Yeah.
Be humble with what you have.
Yeah.
Because there's other people out there that grew up with less, and we
Mhm.
were them.
Yeah.
You know, we grew up having less.
Yep.
So even if
Oh,
I
yeah.
lived in a small little 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom apartment, I would be happy with that. And that's
Yeah,
because,
which, yeah.
and, you know, as
Yep.
long as I got a mattress, even if I had a mattress, I'd feel like a bed. I feel like a king because we didn't have that.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
there was a lot. So it's like you got to humble yourself and stop thinking I got to be like these people and compete with these people just to fit in or just to
Mhm.
be friends with them. You know, because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if they're looking at you that way, that where you have
They
to
ain't your
keep up with
friends.
them, then they're not your friends.
Then
You
all
know,
you're doing is competing with one
exactly.
another. And
And
that goes back
and I wish I
to
learned that at a young age
that
because
goes back
I was trying to keep up
to
with them.
our you know, our the raza, the Chicano raza, the Mexicans, you know, even our black brothers, where they're fighting each other. Like, okay, they're competing with one another, right? And they're pushing each other down. You know,
Yeah.
our own people, are,
Clowning each other on
yeah,
what they're wearing, you
what
know,
kind of
whether
car they're driving,
their
all that,
car.
or when we should be helping, we should be embracing each other and helping, giving each other the hand up, not pushing ourselves down, and supporting one another. You know, if there's a buddy or a friend of ours that they're going into business for themselves, we should be there, you know, helping, you know, promoting,
Giving that
doing,
advice
yeah,
and
advice,
teach them
whatever we could.
instead of charging them for one of your courses, you know,
Yeah,
and saying, "Oh, take my course and pay me this X amount of
yeah, or
dollars."
even ask you for
Just
discounts.
help them out.
Yeah, like, oh, you know
You
what,
know,
bro?
this is the way I did it. These
Mhm.
are the steps to opening your business. This is what you want to do. You know, grab a pen and paper, write it down, and I'll tell you and give you this advice because, you
Mhm.
know, I know that not everybody will do that. Not everybody will want to take the time, sit down and talk to you about it,
Right.
you know? So,
Yeah, man.
it's just,
It's crazy.
and
So
that's more of an envious thing too. You know,
yeah,
people envy each other
yeah,
and
and it
you should
happens a
never
lot
do
with
that.
con la raza.
Yeah.
It happens on with our black brothers as well. Because, you know, we got family. We got family that married in. We got our nephew. You know, he's you know, he's half black.
Mhm.
We're speaking from experience.
Yeah.
We see this day in, day out. We see it, right? And so we should be helping each other, not putting each other down, not competing with one another. And so, you know, we don't have to go too far. George Lopez, great actor, great comedian. The problem there is that
He hates on his own.
yeah,
Like
it's like, bro, like, look, nobody's asking for you to give them a handout. Nah, but don't also put them down.
Mhm.
You know, don't put them down. If you don't want to help them, don't help.
Yeah.
That's all good.
Just don't
But
speak on it.
Just don't speak on it. Don't put them down, man, because they're hungry. They you know, they're looking at you and they're like, we want to be like him. We
Right.
want to be able to make it. The problem is that when
Well, I used to think, I used to listen to him all the time. I used to like his show
yeah,
and everything. But then after I started to see where
Mhm.
his mindset was and how he saw his own raza and how he was kind of like distancing himself from them and certain things he said, and it was just like, you know what, that ain't cool. You shouldn't have never
Especially
spoke on
So
it.
what do I just like talk?
like if you're gonna close it out.
Alright, so alright, ready? What's good, my people? If you like the video, make sure you check us out on Spotify. Full audio will be out on there.
Nah, bro. It's like this. What's up, mi raza? Check us out on Spotify if you like the full video, and hit the comment below. Subscribe, comment, do whatever you want, but we're here, okay? Have a great weekend. Have a blessed one.
Even though you messed up a little bit.